In a fight that lived up to the hype on Saturday night, Gervonta "Tank" Davis successfully moved up 2 weight classes to stop the previously undefeated Barrios. Barrios was a live dog in the fight, having success earlier on, but Davis turned the tide following a 2-knockdown 8th round, leading to the bout's conclusion in the 11th. Here's Gervonta "Tank" Davis after the fight.
I definitely was nervous the whole night because I didn't know if I catch him, would I hurt him? Or if he catch me, will he hurt me? You know, he had on 8 ounces, and my coach and them even Floyd was telling me to press him, but I'm like, I don't know, like I don't want to get caught, you know. So I laid back the whole fight, but I just had to catch him. You know, he was tough. You know, it was tough getting to him. I want to say, you know, he was tall, he had longer reach than mine, so it was tough getting to him. But once I got to him, you know, that's what we got the job done.
Damn right he got the job done. I was impressed, Barack. What was your biggest takeaway from Gervonta's performance?
My biggest takeaway was actually outside of the ring. You know I'm about character. And I was really impressed that Gervonta was so truthful in the post-fight press conference, talking about how nervous he was, how, yes, he wanted to get him out of there, but he was nervous about getting in the ring with a 140-pound fighter, thinking that maybe he's baiting me in. Maybe he's throwing soft shots so I can get bold, come in like I normally do, and get caught with something big. And I appreciated him being very, very honest and him being smart at the same time. You know as well as I know, it's not too good to have too many voices in the corner. You know, sometimes the main coach says, hey, shut up, and while he's giving instructions, and you got Floyd yelling from the outside, everybody's telling him the pressure, and he's like, I don't know about this. So I appreciated his truth, and his power prevailed as usual.
Absolutely, Barack. Sometimes we be on that same wavelength. That was my biggest takeaway from this weekend, because fighters do not do that. They're not that candid. They're not that honest. They won't admit that they were vulnerable in a fight. And a guy that's so aggressive, like he is, such a killer in the ring, to be that honest was, I was so impressed by that. Barack, he's fighting a guy, I should say he was fighting a guy on Saturday night who was way taller, not only undefeated, but he actually can fight. He's a skilled fighter. Might not be the biggest name at 140, but he can fight. So getting into that distance where he's most comfortable at, where he's landing his biggest shots, body shots, straight left hand, downstairs, all of those things, he's so much shorter than him. It's very difficult to get to that point. So I wasn't shocked that it took him a few rounds. When he was down the first few rounds on the unofficial scorecard, I mean, he was down on my card as well, and the cards were a little suspect, but that's a different story, because guess what? Gervonta Davis didn't allow it to go to the judges. So we wouldn't have had any controversy on, oh, why were the scorecards this, why was that? He stopped him. He stopped him, knocked him down in the 8 2 times, and then eventually stopped him in the fight. So I think Gervonta Davis had a stellar performance this past weekend. I was overly impressed with him fighting at 140 and still carrying his power to that division the way he did, Barack.
100%. I would say, even if he didn't say in the post-fight interview that he was nervous and he was tentative to let go of those power shots, I would say that anyway, I would say that he was trying to set him up. He was trying to pick those spots. It's just like when we saw Jamel Charlo versus John Jackson, Julian Jackson's son. He was losing. He was losing, maybe 6 out of those 7 rounds before the 8th round knockout. Deontay Wilder versus Luis Ortiz. You're waiting for those shots. You might not be doing good on the scorecards, but you're setting your guy up, and I believe that's what he was doing the whole time.
Barack, as bad as I was itching to mention the name Floyd Mayweather in that first segment, I did not want to take away from the praise I was giving Gervonta Davis for his performance. But there's a lot to say about Floyd Mayweather. Not only was he interrupting Coach Calvin throughout the fight in the corner on a prize championship fight, he was distracting Gervonta Davis. Not once, not twice. I don't know how many rounds he did at Barack. But on the post-fight press conference, he also went back to what he normally does, talking about himself and the way he moved up in weight classes, comparing it to the way Gervonta's moving up in weight classes. And he didn't even want to grab a microphone when he was offered a microphone, saying, I don't need that. But he actually did need it because you can barely hear him talking. But I'm used to dealing with that, Barack. We know that Floyd Mayweather usually does that. He talks about himself often. He's gone into the corner to give Gervonta instructions throughout a fight. But the one thing that stood out to me the most and actually made me a bit upset, Barack, was his response to one of the media members, asking about Gervonta Davis's next opponent, his next fight, yada, yada, yada. I want you guys to watch this clip here.
So we keep everything in-house. Mayweather Promotions, PBC. We all one family, so we're not gonna go nowhere and make another company great. So we got plenty of fighters that's at 140, 135, and 130. We're gonna continue to fight the fighters that we got to fight.
Right now, I'm getting flashbacks from when I first watched this. Steam coming out of my ears, right? But give me your take on the first thought that you had when you heard that statement.
No. First of all, I want to address you talking about Floyd disrespecting, as you said, Calvin Ford. We all know that when you're heavily invested in a fight, you're on the outside of the ring, you're yelling into your fighter. Even you've done it from the media section. You're yelling because you want to see a fighter do certain things. Can it be distracting?
Walking to the corner is different. Walking to the actual corner.
Can it be distracting? Yes. Should security stop people from coming close to the corner? 100%. I remember Mickey Bay when he fought John Molina Jr. He was winning every single round. Floyd was yelling, "You looking better than me in there." And it's like Mickey Bay's like, "Oh yeah? Beep." TKO. So yes, that could be distracting. It wasn't distracting this time, maybe with Gervonta Davis. But as far as
Barack, I gotta address that. I'm not talking about yelling instructions. I'm talking about literally stopping Calvin from giving his fighter instructions.
No,
like interrupting
nobody
Calvin.
actually can stop you. You have to allow them to. So if there's always somebody yelling while the chief second is giving instructions to their fighter. He chose, because he's Floyd, Calvin chose to stop and give him the mic. He didn't have to. Right. So that's him letting him he's giving him a voice.
Right, but he's only doing that. He's doing that because he's Floyd and he has his sense of entitlement, so he knows he's going to be able to do that and get Gervonta's attention in the corner, and Calvin is going to do what he did. So he knows that he has that, he feels he has that entitlement. That's why he's comfortable doing that. So yes, Calvin is going to, bow down to Floyd and let him finish his statement, but it's all wrong.
Well, Calvin might feel like what Floyd has to say can help. If you watch the All Accesses, Calvin and Gervonta are talking about, you're following in Floyd's footsteps. Like Floyd is somebody who's revered by many. So, like I said, he let his voice into that corner. Now, but when it comes to the statement that Floyd made in the press conference, that's not good for boxing, Floyd. That's not good for boxing. If you're gonna own, first of all, Mayweather Promotions don't have that many fighters at 130, 135, and 140. But he's including PBC. I understand PBC probably got 20 or 20-something fighters within those three weight classes. So I get it, but none with that kind of name that Gervonta Davis deserves on his record. You're gonna put him against Rolando Romero? I guess maybe that's what they thinking, because he's the WBA interim champion, I believe he still is. I know his next fight is gonna be for that belt. So I don't think that's gonna move the needle. I think this is where Gervonta Davis should say, these are the guys I wanna fight. These are the guys at the top of all of these particular divisions. And that's how it should be, because Floyd is one of those guys who came from getting away from a promoter. Floyd is one of those guys who will tell you that the best should fight the best. So therefore, to say that, diminishes Mayweather's brand and it diminishes Gervonta Davis' brand if they go forward with that.
Barack, just imagine the NBA was like this. Imagine Michael Jordan You're just saying that he just wanted to play, players on the East and didn't want to go to the West and play basketball in a championship game. Imagine elite athletes not wanting to play against the other elite athletes. Floyd Mayweather has benefited more than anybody in boxing history in two promoters and networks working together and fighting Manny Pacquiao. If it wasn't for two promotional companies, two networks, and people getting together to make a fight, guess what? He never would have been a part of the biggest fight in history in terms of revenue. All right, we wouldn't have seen Chavez and Whitaker if promoters didn't get together to make fights like Don King and Bob Arum did. I mean, there are so many fights. I could go down a list and be here all day about fights that we would have never seen if promoters didn't work together. So that's the most hypocritical thing I've ever heard Floyd say, because he himself has benefited more than anybody in boxing history by working with other promoters, meaning two promotional companies. So keeping everything in-house, knowing, right, that there's nobody there that can really give Gervonta Davis not only a run for his money, but make big fights. There's nobody there. So I just think if it's about money, Barack, if it's only about money and Al paying these guys tons of money to fight fights that maybe not have that much risk, if it's only about that, then maybe Gervonta's in a perfect place. But I feel, just not knowing him personally, but his pedigree, he wants to create legacy. So Floyd Mayweather, if he executes what he's saying that he wants to do, he's hurting Gervonta Davis's legacy in the history of boxing. And I know Gervonta wants to prove that he's the best. He's going to have to fight fighters from other promotional companies and other networks in order to do so. So please, Floyd, don't hurt this young man's legacy. He's a loyal fighter, so he's allowing his team to make the decisions. But you know who he needs to fight, and I know who he wants to fight. So please don't do that to this young man if it's not only about money.
You know who he wants to fight. That's funny. I don't even know who he wants to fight. Well, maybe Ryan Garcia, one of these guys, or Devin Haney. That would be nice. Teofimo Lopez. That would be nice as well.
Oh, I would say, those are great names you're throwing out.
Is Floyd gonna throw him Regis Prograis? Is Floyd gonna throw him Chris Colbert? I can't say Floyd. These are PBC fighters. You know what I mean? Or maybe Adrian Broner, Robert Easter Jr. These are friends of Gervonta Davis. So I don't think that's gonna happen. But on the flip side, I remember when Floyd was like negotiating with Manny Pacquiao, and out of nowhere, this is way past when Manny didn't want to take the random drug testing, and that's why the fight didn't happen in the beginning. But so it's not about Floyd not fighting fighters in their prime. So, but I remember him saying, "I'm only fighting Manny if he signs to Mayweather Promotions." Now at the time, I thought that was crazy. I was like, "That's never gonna happen. Manny's bigger than Mayweather Promotions. What are you talking about?" Eventually, Mayweather Promotions promoted that fight, and maybe that's what Floyd is alluding to. He wants, fine, we'll fight you, Ryan, we'll fight you, whoever, but it has to be on the Mayweather Promotion. Now, I know he didn't really say that. I know he's really just saying in-house, but maybe that can happen. Maybe these fights can still happen as long as he's the promoter.